And they're like, we have to make broad legislative changes. We have to make sure that this never happens again. Nowadays, it's like, oh, there it is. There it is. There it is. Okay. Bro, top of the agenda is thoughts and prayers. The f- do you mean? This will leave the news cycle. Well, I mean, depending on how much coverage there was, if the strapped a GoPro on his chest and filmed the entire process, it will be around, depending on what the background is, what the ideology is. If he's like overtly right-wing and a white supremacist, it'll be around for like a week and a half. If he is overtly left-wing, for example, it'll be around for a month, because the Republicans will talk about it as though, like, there it is, leftists doing a mash. They do it all the time. If he's an immigrant, obviously that's, if he's like the child of undocumented immigrants or something like that, it'll be around for maybe months and months. But ultimately, if it's one of the exact same style of school that you see all the goddamn time, like a white kid, a straight white male, okay, who got his dad's and walked into school and shot a bunch of people, then it'll be over. It'll be over in like 3 to 4 days. No one will talk about it again, because why the should we? That's just commonplace. That's just how it works, Bro, he's 14. Yeah, I know. What do you mean? It's from the Georgia school. We're going to get to American domestic politics. We'll talk about Kamala Harris's campaign event that she just had, where she, of course, talked about the school as well. Here, let's take a look at what's going on in Georgia.
Helping her and to know.
Actually, let me start off here. Let's take a look at what's going on in Georgia from the police.
My name is Sheriff Judge Smith. I'm the sheriff of Bexar County Sheriff's Office. We're standing on the campus of Apalachee High School here at Bexar County Schools. First and foremost, I want to lift up our community. I want to give our sympathies to our community, our school system, our kids, our parents that had to witness this today. Obviously, what you see behind us is an evil thing today. At about 9:30 this morning, we received the first call that there was an active on this campus. We're not releasing any information as far as injuries, but we have multiple injuries. This is a very, very fluid investigation. It's very early, and I have asked the assistance of the GBI and the agencies here behind me today, and there are multiple agencies that responded this morning to help us and help the sheriff's office. We do have a suspect in custody, and we are asking for your patience as the media to please let us get the facts that we need to make sure we get this right. Again, I've asked the GBI to help us, the sheriff's office, to help us along with this. I know this is not what you want to hear, but I'm not going to answer questions after this is over with. But I wanted to give you the respect and our community respect to let them know what was going on initially. We're in the process of reunifying our students with their parents. Obviously, that's chaotic, but we want to be respectful of them and their privacy as well. I want to thank the state, the federal agencies, the local agencies that showed up today, as you can see.
A very dark piece of data. We've now had 15 times more deaths because of mass than undocumented migrants. 386 mass deaths versus 25 undocumented migrants mass data. Yeah.
The multiple EMS and fire from other agencies that responded today. Again, I ask that you lift up Bexar County Schools, lift up Apalachee, lift up our agencies. This is going to take multiple days for us to get answers as to what happened and why this happened.
This is more of a failure of control, not the failing of the police first, though. Yes, both are at fault. Yeah, of course it's a failure of control, a lack of control. That's crazy. Of course. It is. This is a legislative problem, okay, first and foremost. That's it.
But I wanted to give you a statement. It is our hope, in conjunction with these people behind us, that we can give you another statement around 4 o'clock, because I know you have to go back on the air. That is my hope. But I wanted to be fluid with you all, understanding that it's fluid as well with this investigation. I appreciate you being patient with us. Again, it's very active and is ever developing. Every minute it's developing on what we're finding.
So let's see what there's. I'm sure there's some more coverage on this. But here's what the president released after today's school. Republicans in Congress must finally say enough is enough and work with Democrats to pass common sense safety legislation. We must ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines once again, require safe storage of firearms, enact universal background checks, and end immunity for manufacturers. Is correct. It is the correct position. No American will come to terms with that, of course. CNN reports a 16-year-old student at Apalachee High School Center. Mama texts, I'm sorry I haven't been a perfect daughter. I love you. School should be sued for not having armed security guards to guard the kids. Yeah, as far as details goes, there's 14 years old. School has been open for like 3 days at this point. And this is happening in Georgia, where the Georgia governor, Brian Kemp, signed a bill allowing to be carried without a license. So, 2 days into the school year, already a school. Kamala Harris talked about it at the rally.
So before I begin, I do want to say a few words about this tragedy that took place.
So rehearsed, and it feels like we are in this like permanent holding pattern. Like, it comes across, I'm not gonna lie, like they're on the right side of this issue unconditionally. Okay, Democrats are on the right side of this issue, straight up. It's just it's the truth. Okay, this is not like this is not an endorsement of Kamala Harris or Joe Biden or anything like that, or an endorsement of the Democratic Party. Having said that, however, they are absolutely on the right side of this issue. It's just, that's it. But because it has happened so much and so frequently that like this pattern that we keep repeating over and over again comes across scripted and hollow. Yes, I'm going to cover Tim Pool, Dave Rubin, and others receiving money from Russia Today to push pro-Russia content. I'm going to do it. Please just calm down. I'm talking about something else. It's on the docket. Of course, I'm going to talk about it. And I'm also going to talk about how so many of the pro-Ukrainian content creators have spent most of their time and effort on me rather than those guys. I wonder why. But that's not the point right now. Okay?
This morning in Winder, Georgia, we're still gathering information about what happened, but we know that
it comes across hollow. It comes across rehearsed. You know what I mean? I don't know how else to describe it.
there were multiple fatalities and injuries. And, our hearts are with.
Bro, I can't even begin to imagine how you do it on Twitter. I tweeted about this earlier today and about about a school that happened in my community, how it's that this still happens. The algorithm must have picked it up. I've gotten threats, DMs, replies from the most unhinged freaks. Just insane. People are actually out of their minds. Like, holy dude, I don't know how you do it every day. You have to remember, these are not real human beings, okay? Just remember that and you'll be fine. These are not real human beings, okay? Like they're human beings, but they're barely sentient. There's something about Twitter, especially now Twitter, that has caused all the worst aspects of like these subhuman scumbags to just feel emboldened, okay, to say whatever they want to say. Those people would not carry that same energy in the real world, okay? That's it. Those people do not exist in the real world for the most part, and some of them are literally bots, like AI, This issue will never be tackled because 6% happen in private schools, so it doesn't affect rich people as much. All the more reason to ban private schools so the rich can actually care about safety and education. That's an interesting attitude I had not considered. But I think it just simply won't get solved because the Republican Party owns like unlimited, unrestricted access to weapons as a major policy position. And it's a very popular policy as well. So, hey, I saw you went on the deprogram again. I just have to say, bro, there's literally no winning. The right call you a Hamas terrorist loving advocate, and the left is calling you a DNC shill liberal who doesn't do enough for Palestine in the comments of the deprogram episode. Yeah, it doesn't matter. It literally doesn't matter. Who cares? People are just chirping online. Do what you know is right. That has been my policy since day one. Okay? Stop reading the background noise and caring about it. Who gives a... Okay? There's been highs and there's been lows on this broadcast. We've had members leave the community and then come back slowly but surely. Ultimately, this does not change my calculation. Okay? I don't care if my perspective is beloved by people online. Okay? What's the leftist social media platform would be refreshing? It doesn't exist. It's not a thing. Anyway, optics are a tool to an end. Helps, but yes, it would be much nicer if most people most people who are extremely online, who happen to be overrepresented in obviously the way that people read comments and whatnot, were not brain broken losers who are incredibly uncharitable. Okay? Yes, it would be nice, but it doesn't matter. Anyway, okay. Yes, history. I've said it all over and over again. History will absolve me, but that's neither here nor there. Okay? When I was younger, I was one of the it's not a problem people. Because of you and people like you, I saw the error in my thinking and the truth. Thanks, man. Exactly. And that's precisely why I do what I do. That and also serving 3-minute ad breaks at the top of the hour. Okay? Those are the two reasons why I do what I do. You know, because at the top of the hour, there's a 3-minute ad break. If you no longer want to see those ads, all you need to do is subscribe for $6 or for free with Twitch Prime, or by getting gifted a sub if you are lucky. Okay? I don't think that there is going to be a mass event that causes Americans to wake up to this reality of school and where it comes from and how to stop it, for the record.
With all the students, the teachers, and their families, of course. And we are grateful to the first responders and the law enforcement that were on the scene. But this is just a senseless tragedy on top of so many senseless tragedies. And it's just outrageous that every day in our country, in the United States of America, that parents have to send their children to school worried about whether or not their child will come home alive. It's senseless. It is. We've got to stop it.
Oh my God. Twitter not only is fucking 4chan, but also simultaneously is so ass at serving video.
You know, it doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't have to be this way. So we will continue, of course, to send our prayers and our thoughts to the families and all those who were affected, including, you know, I'm going off script right now, but listen, I mean, you know, at the last year, I started a college tour, and I traveled our country meeting with our young leaders, right? And so it was college-aged young leaders. So I did trade schools, colleges, universities, community colleges. By the way, I love Gen Z. I just love Gen Z. Right?
The video is not matched up. Is totally delayed. I don't know why. Is Kamala promising more control? Yeah. I mean, that's the basic Democratic position.
But I'll tell you, one of the things that I asked every time I went to the audience.
I can't even. Dude, this is ass, dude. Holy, it's so ass. Anyway. Update on the match is going to come in the next 30 minutes, by the way.
Absolutely. All right, Ryan Young, thanks so much. We'll come back to you. Let's bring in CNN senior national security analyst Juliet Kayyem. She was a former assistant secretary for the Department of Homeland Security. Juliet, thanks for joining us. Multiple law enforcement officials are telling CNN that Apalachee High School had gotten an earlier threat on the phone this morning, warning that there would be at 5 schools and that Apalachee would be first. What more do we know about that?
We don't know much more, and we don't know obviously who the caller was. My suspicion, just based on what happened, is that this was a person who wanted to create more destruction, and also wanted it to be known that it was him, and went on this rampage. The second possible theory is that there's more than one person involved, although the police have not been suggesting that yet, and the fact that the family unification has already occurred suggests that they think it's just him. I know this seems obvious to a lot of people, like, oh, they got, they screwed up, they got a phone call and they didn't close the school. Schools get phone calls like this all the time. It is one of them. That's why I'm very much for prosecuting people who make these kinds of calls, whether often in jest. These kinds of calls are happening all the time. We have to learn what did they think of it? What did they think it was? How often was this school getting them before we can pass judgment on the school district?
We're told that officials are going to brief in a few minutes. We'll obviously bring that to our viewers and listeners live. What are some of the topics you want them to address?
So obviously the access issue, I'm curious about how accessible the school was. What was its risk environment? Had there been before? What kind of, it's a high school, what kind of metal detectors and others there were? Obviously the age, Jake. At the statistics, it's not as unusual as we wish. That schools occur by 14-year-olds, but a mass like this is very rare. That's a young age. So then the third and important question is access to everyone knows Georgia's laws are permissive. It's just, this isn't a political commentary. they are exceptionally permissive. And that means that the parents or someone who made it either available to him or he took it from them. We need to get more aggressive against adults who buy these weapons and make them accessible or allow them to be accessible to a 14-year-old. And I guess the last question, of course, is motive. Was this against a particular person, a classroom? What was his reason for doing it? But you and I have been doing this long enough. Sometimes the motive isn't satisfying. It's just someone who's gets and wants to use them in a manner, and we can blame mental health or whatever else, but it doesn't really get to why this morning.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, some parts of the country have safe storage laws, meaning that there needs to be a trigger lock or the firearm needs to be stored in some sort of safe so that minors cannot get or anyone else cannot get the. What is your assessment so far, based on the limited information we have, of the initial emergency response?
I thought it was exceptionally quick, at least from what I know now, in terms of the two things we care about. So one is notification to both the students who are in harm's way, but also the outside world. The parents who are going to come rushing to the school seems to have been tested and planned enough that you at least minimize the harm. We're going to get a TikTok on the second question about sort of how did law enforcement do. We're going to get a TikTok of sort of how long it took them to get there relatively soon, and we'd have to see, how large was that gap in terms of both the police coming in and then emergency managers getting and paramedics getting the injured out. There's a lot of injured people, so we don't know what the final count is going to be. But look, this is generation lockdown. These students that we're hearing from knew this drill. They may not have recognized it immediately, and the teachers certainly know what to do. It is a necessary evil given the environment that we're in, but I am curious about sort of that response time, as we always are.
Yeah, we already have a Gen Alpha man. The child was born in 2010, has spent over 1/3 of their life in a post-COVID world. Yeah, I mean, people are like, oh, how could this have happened? Like, he's 14 years old. He's so young. And it's like, what do you mean? Open your eyes, dude. Like, this is the most American thing. It is actually shocking when it doesn't happen all the time. We have had, it is so American to do a school. It is so ingrained in our DNA at this point, especially as a consequence of the mass availability of weapons, that we had a trans, okay? Like, do you understand how commonplace it needs to happen? How commonplace of a thing this is, that there is a trans person that did a school, okay? Like, that's how American this is, okay? Like, that's how American it is. It's 1% of the population. Everybody gets a piece at this point. I'm honestly surprised there was this long of a gap between schools. There wasn't. It's just this one is like something that the media is paying more attention to. And also the gap between schools is called summer break. That's just what it is. It's called summer break. That's the gap between schools. The school year literally just started 2 days ago, dude. 2 days. It's crazy because I talked about this yesterday and I was joking about how Americans love school so much that like 10 of them happen during lockdowns. We say it's got to stop, but I've covered this so much. I've covered this so much, and it literally is unfathomable. The fact that we've made no movements in the right direction in terms of like a reasonable solution to this problem. I don't know what to say. It's just, and the defense of it basically becomes more and more unhinged. Like, we joke about this at this point where like, we've moved on from control, which you cannot talk about, obviously. Democrats talk about it, but it goes nowhere. Republicans will say that's never going to happen. Shut the up. So they end up talking about the background of the and claiming that like there's trans over and over again. Ridiculous, right? Or there's an undocumented migrant or whatever they want to shift the blame over to. Then if there's no background that they can shift the blame over to, they start talking about how, well, it's a mental health problem. Okay? There's a ton of mentally ill people, dude, and all around the world, as a matter of fact. So why aren't they having the same exact issues? Perhaps it's because there's one significant difference in the United States of America as opposed to all the other developed nations where, they don't have more in circulation than there are people in this country. Turns out that might be a big reason. And they say mental health, and they never actually do anything about the mental health problem anyway. It's just the same shifting of the responsibility and shifting of the blame cycle all over again. It's just like when Republicans always remember that there are homeless veterans when we're talking about undocumented migrants. Oh, we're not even taking care of our homeless veterans. Bitch, you don't want to take care of the homeless veterans. You're the reason. You mean homeless veterans? The only time Republicans ever talk about homeless veterans is when the conversation is on undocumented migrants, okay? They remember that homeless veterans exist. Homeless people exist. All of a sudden, they are victims. In every other conversation, they're criminals. This is the same principle that the Republicans have applied to every point of contention. Shift the responsibility away to a different problem that they are also responsible for. Mental health is a problem. Okay, so let's solve it. Let's do healthcare. No. Mental health is a problem. Okay, so let's do red flag laws. No. Then what the? And when all is said and done, when you don't have those other when you don't have those other issues that you can point to, then Republicans get really unhinged. Door control, security guards. Oh, there's a security guard at this school that was armed. Okay, then we have to fix the doors. We got to do door control. Oh, well, there wasn't actually there was door control now. Okay, well, how about we arm the teachers? Okay, teachers are armed now in the Pioneer program in Florida and many other places. Okay, well then, how about ladder control, bulletproof backpacks, classrooms that have bulletproof areas? It just doesn't fucking matter. These people are unhinged. Georgia's lieutenant governor wants to also pay teachers $10,000 a year to carry his school. Barrow County Superintendent Chris McNeil said that although his district allows the security chief to carry, the school board would have to carefully examine arming other employees. His force increases funding to our school resource officers, saying the district has 15 to 16 officers, not enough to have one in each of his 20 schools. Barrow County Sheriff Judd Smith was more enthusiastic, saying armed teachers could be a force multiplier in the case of a... It's like a joke, dude. It's insane, but that is American politics, okay? American politics is finding the most unreasonable, most unhinged non-solution that will literally increase the frequency of at schools. Like anyone with a shred of intelligence can look at that and go, really? You want to arm teachers? You think having easier access that will solve the problem of school? Why not arm the students too? Because once they arm the teachers, that's the next step. Kindergartens. It is insane. Oh, fuck it, dude. YOLO. Let's arm everybody, Force multiplier in a school. In my state, there's a county that's offering a $500 bonus for a retired cop to come guard for the year. Remember, the New York Police Department, which is supposed to be adequately trained in active scenarios, their on-target hit rate in an active is 17%. Those are the cops. Now, imagine what a teacher would do in an active scenario. How many of their own students will they accidentally dome? It's insane. Additionally insane to think when more means a higher likelihood of being stolen from a teacher to literally conduct the mass directly on site. I like that we're basically making it easier to do mass by putting more in classrooms. That will definitely solve the problem. None of this makes sense. Nothing makes sense in the United States of America, okay? Because we are way too primed to not solve Gaza.
If you gave me a button to just erase every single living being would no longer be living tomorrow, I would press it in a second. That's just, I think most Israelis
if that's the choice.
Yeah. No.
These guys aren't nice, nor are they boys, man. What the? This is two elderly Jewish gentlemen podcast. Where are the boys? Are the boys in the room with us? I feel like once you reach 35, you're no longer a boy. You're a man. Okay.
Oh, even if it's not like right now,
Yeah, no.
I would press it right now.
Yeah, and same with the territories.
I would press it right now.
Mm-hmm.
No choice. No, Shawn is safe at home. God willing. I don't know. I haven't spoken to her in like an hour.
No, I'm saying for the chance.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would press it right now. Give me that button and press it right now.
there you go.
And I think most Israelis would.
Yeah, most Jewish
They wouldn't.
Israelis.
They wouldn't post. They wouldn't talk about it like I am.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't post. They wouldn't say I pressed it,
Yeah,
but they would.
they
press
don't
it.
have balls of steel like you.
They would, but they would press it. Right? Like if they were in a
Yeah.
closet alone, they would.
I don't understand why my dude is saying this thing that we all know very openly, not even thinking about like other people might hear this and go, damn, you're a piece of shit. That's pretty crazy.
They wouldn't even hesitate. Someone came to them and Hadar said, "No one will know. You press this, all the Palestinians are gone." You'd be like, "Hey, is there another one?"
I mean, it makes sense. They're doing it right now. He's just saying that he's on board with it. Do you think it would if the other way were around? Maybe. Okay. But do you understand the difference in the way that this attitude is represented? Because Hamas isn't doing that right now. Israel is. Israel is literally doing that right now. I see your podcast has been running since 2016. Available data is not kind. Most of your videos get under 500 views and you don't even chart on Israel's podcast rankings. By all metrics, a failure. I recommend taking a Gary Vee course or getting a hair transplant in Turkey. Lol, why would we be in Israel's podcast ranking, you imbecile? We're a podcast in English. Because it appears to be the only chart you've ever shown up on. The ESL one doesn't seem to speak much due to his poor grasp of English. That's fine, but the balding one should smile less and perhaps adopt a hat as pictured below to mask his Yakubian megacephaly. One of the funnier aspects of this conversation that's taken place here, okay, is that the notion that like, oh, Israelis are too afraid to say this out loud. It's like, no, they're not. They say it all the time on Twitter. And it seems like you're not afraid to say it out loud on your podcast. They say it in polls. They say it out loud. They say it, God forbid you ever translate from Hebrew to English, okay? Oh my God. It's done an unimaginable amount of counter PR for any kind of opinion that people might have had about like, oh, well, Israel seems like the most moral nation on earth. Let's see what the average Israeli thinks about God. Oh my God, what are they saying? This is like new levels of Hitlerian politics I had not thought about before. Oh my God. The Hebrew loot box tweet, you get different rarities of language. Yeah. Like ancient tomes of spice, dude. It's like the fears that people have of like the polar ice caps melting, new rare diseases we haven't seen before. That's what is going on when you translate Hebrew to English, okay? You have not seen this level of, you have not seen these kinds of racist takes in a while. Cool stuff. Man, I have to live with these people. You don't know the half of it. I mean, I get it. I live in America, so I get it. Trust me. Holy. You know, we got a decent amount of this kind of sentiment here too. Trust me.
So
this maniac was raised in the U.S. like Mayor Kahan. His fascism was homegrown in the U.S. and exported to the West Asia to try to colonize Palestine on behalf of the massive U.S. empire. Of course, for the record, the most rabid ultra-Zionists are oftentimes, which is ironic, maybe, because I just said this, but the most rabid ultra-Zionists, like Mayor Kahan, are American-born. We just have this weird concoction here. Don't know what it is. I don't know if it's like the water or something, but like El Salvadorans come here, okay? They're pushed aside by like are forced to not be able to integrate into American society. They start gangs. You know, that's what happens usually. All of a sudden, they're using American weapons, American training. What happens next? MS-13. What do we do with MS-13? We take them out of our prisons and we ship their asses back to El Salvador. We don't even tell the El Salvadoran government we're doing this. Fast a couple decades later, they are running the show, okay? That is our number one export and our number one innovative product is breeding people who are monsters, okay? We are so goated at it. It is the thing that we're the best at. I will move on to the press conference from the school when it starts on CNN. It hasn't started yet. Great stuff. You know, there is one group of people that also took a lot of inspiration from America. Adolf Hitler was his name. He looked to what America had done, both in the first stage of the Bracero program during World War I and the mass deportation that took place and the equipment that they used, and also Jim Crow laws and American eugenicists. That's right. We're kind of the number one at exporting this kind of Hitlerian politics. The podcast host sat on the left, used to work in media for Netanyahu. Yeah, that's not surprising. There's no good news in the world right now. There's some good news. There's some changes that are happening. Minor changes, but changes nonetheless. And we welcome these changes. I did talk about the school, and we're waiting for more information to come out on it. Okay? CNN is probably going to start.
Authorities are giving an update on the match at the high school in Georgia. Let's listen.
And we wanted to come back this afternoon and present you with a little more of a timeline of the events that have taken place here today and what we know up to this point with the investigation. At approximately 10:20 a.m. this morning, the Bexar County Sheriff's Office received alerts about reports of an active and radio traffic from school resource officers concerning the same concern, or having the same concern. Within minutes, was on scene, as well as 2 school resource officers assigned here to the school who immediately encountered the subject with just minutes of this report going out. Once they encountered the subject immediately surrendered to these officers and he was taken into custody. Additionally, what I want you to know as of now, there are 4 individuals who are deceased from this incident, 9 that have been taken to local hospitals with various injuries. Of those that are deceased, 2 are students and 2 are teachers here at the school. The priority right now for us within this investigation is to gather all the facts, to make sure that we're accurate with it, because this is a murder investigation. As the sheriff mentioned earlier this morning, he is in custody. His name is Colt, that's C-O-L-T, Gray. He is a 14-year-old student here at the school, G-R-A-Y. He is a 14-year-old student here at the high school. Again, he has been taken into custody. He will be charged with murder, and he will be tried as an adult and handled as an adult. We're coordinating these charges and obviously this investigation with District Attorney Brad Smith, who is the District Attorney for the Piedmont Judicial Circuit here. Since earlier this morning we talked with you, and since the incident occurred, numerous interviews have been taking place through our investigation with students, faculty, as well as any other witnesses that we could identify. Law enforcement had a very, very swift response to this incident once the incident was determined that there was a concern here. Those resources, whether it was in that response or throughout this investigation to assist, came obviously from the sheriff's office here, from other local law enforcement agencies, state law enforcement agencies, and the federal law enforcement agencies as well, to include, not to be left out, multiple EMS personnel, multiple fire personnel, and agencies. Those agencies responded here as well today, and I am extremely grateful, as I know the sheriff is, for that quick response and the partnerships of working here together with what all has gone on. Currently, from the investigative perspective, we have crime scene agents and other special agents from the GBI, from close to a dozen of our different work units from across the state that have responded here today to work on this investigation, again, collecting evidence, conducting interviews, and so forth. I do want to pass this along, that if anyone has any information that wants to be passed on concerning this investigation, that they can do that anonymously at our tip line at 1-800-597-TIPS or 1-800-597-8477. They can also report this on by downloading the See Something, Send Something app. That can be done by Android or Apple phones, either one, if they need to report any tips concerning this investigation. Let me close out before I turn this over to the sheriff and let you just remind you that this is still a very active investigation. There is still a lot that is very fluid. There's still a lot of interviews to be conducted that will continue on into the night, as well as crime scene work and collecting and gathering evidence. But what is more important for me to mention here to you is my heartfelt sympathy to the parents, the students that were here today. Regardless of where they were in the school, this has got a great impact on them as well as on this community. My thoughts and prayers, along with everybody standing behind me and every law enforcement agency in this state, and many I will tell you around this country, they are in our thoughts and prayers, and we will continue with that. We ask for your patience as we continue through this, and we'll continue to try to give you as many updates with information as we can to keep you informed. But thank you for being here. I'm now going to turn it over to Bexar County Sheriff Judge Smith. Thank you, HOSEY.
Good afternoon. I'm Sheriff Judge Smith of the Bexar County Sheriff's Office. I never imagined that I would be speaking to the media in my career over something that happened today, the pure evil that happened today. I cannot thank the people behind me for the support
bro?
they
You're
give,
an American sheriff, of course.
give this office and give this staff.
It is an inevitability.
This hits home for me. I was born and raised here. I went to school in this school system. My kids go to this school system. I'm proud of this school system.
The thing is, what are they supposed to do? They can't,
kids.
like, I can't believe I'm saying this, but it's not the cops' fault.
But I want to make it very clear that hate,
Like, what are they supposed to do? Envision a school happening ahead of time and like apprehend the child on the way, to the school? You know what I mean?
What happened today?
Everyone has a.
It is very early as to what happened.
Like, what are they supposed to do? Apprehend thought crimes or something? Like, there's not
Governor
really much
Kemp
you can do.
reached out to me and has provided me every single resource.
There's not much you can do other than precog
to make sure justice prevails. I don't know why it happened. I may not ever know. We may not ever know. But I ask that you and our community lift up our schools, lift up our public safety, and that, again, we do not let this hateful event prevail as to what
It's
happened
crazy
today.
because in like other normal countries, this is not a defense of police at all, but in other normal countries, it's actually police that are absolutely in favor of like restrictions on weapons. You know, in America, it's the opposite. Cops are also super right wing and consistently advocate for looser regulation, which is always odd. Always odd because it's making your job harder, you dumb.
Continue to lift up these families, continue to lift up our students and our kids, and know that love will prevail. At this time, I'm going to ask Dr. LaDuff, our school superintendent, to come and speak on behalf of the school.
Good afternoon. I'm Dallas LaDuff. I'm the superintendent of Bexar County School System. I want to thank the Bexar County Sheriff's Office and all of our law enforcement partners for their swift response today, along with that of our staff. I'd also like to thank our community for their response and patience as we work to reunify the students with their families here today and secure the rest of our school campuses. Our schools will be closed for the remainder of this week as we cooperate fully with law enforcement to get answers to the many questions that we all have about this incident here today. But as we are closed, our central offices will remain open, where we will have grief counseling available for our community every day this week and thereafter as we support each other through this terrible event. In closing, I just want to say to our community, as a school system, we are here for you, we support you, and we are ready to get you any support that you may need.
You're shocked that the police didn't. That's not shocking at all. Most matches literally end with like an unarmed like good guy putting their bodies on the line. Like that's statistically an unlikely scenario, is a mass ending with cops coming and
education and want to harm others. To me, it's hateful.
Sheriff, can you talk about the initial interaction between whoever was able to stop it? Can you describe that to us? How did it
oftentimes they will just do a mash and then go
Obviously, he
themselves.
was armed, and our school resource officer engaged him and then quickly realized that if he did not give up, that it would end with an OIS, or an officer involved. He gave up, got on the ground, and the deputy took him into custody.
Sheriff, any idea how the weapon got inside the school? And was there any warning that this was going to happen?
Not that I'm
GBI is
aware
the
of.
Georgia
Again, very
Bureau of
early, and
Investigations.
We're still looking into that, whether or not, or how he obtained it and how he got it in the school.
At all with his parents or his family to learn more about what led up to these moments?
We have.
Any information you can share?
No.
It seems like you have a large Hispanic.
A lot of people in the chat would gladly support the death penalty, I guess. Yeah, I mean, look, that's neither here nor there. America has the death penalty. This kid will probably be, I mean, he's going to be tried as an adult and he'll probably get the death penalty. Will that actually stop more mass from happening? No. Okay? That's just revenge. That's bloodlust. And it's ironically the same exact bloodlust that we have in every orifice of our goddamn unimaginably culture that causes a 14-year-old to engage in this kind of action to begin with. Okay? America is a powder keg, okay, waiting to explode. And as a matter of fact, explodes on a regular fucking basis. We're in a death spiral. No one seems to recognize it. And it's always short-term, immediate gratification. We're so primed towards that. It's like, oh yeah, well, this 14-year-old, and then, you know, problem solved. It's like, no, dude, that's not going to solve the problem. What will solve the problem is making it harder for people to have weapons, okay? That will solve the problem. Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to do it. So we'll just get that immediate gratification from like a 14-year-old.
We mentioned that we identified early. Keep in mind that
he's evil, okay? Of course. It's still a 14-year-old, though. We have to look at how a 14-year-old gets to this point. If you want to actually solve an issue, you have to literally analyze how did a 14-year-old get to this point? How did this happen? Okay? That's a minor. That's a child.
How many rounds are fired?
Do what?
Is a student, yes.
When can we expect any past history with law enforcement?
For now, this is the information that we have. It is an active investigation. I assure you we do plan to come back out here in a couple of hours. Please make sure you're following the GBIX page. That's where we're going to be putting the updates. If there's anything that's new, we'll make sure that we share that information. It's still very early. Investigators have a lot of work to do. We appreciate your patience. Do expect another in-person news conference out here in the next few hours. Monitor the X page, and we will be sure to update you accordingly. Thank you.
And that's the on x.com.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Isn't the owner of the firearm responsible?
You
anyway?
have been
Yes.
listening to.
Yes, his parents will. There was an instance where a minor did this last year or 2 years ago, and yes, their parents were held responsible.
About today's mass
Of course,
at
and they
Apalachee
should be.
High School, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation
I gotta pee.
confirmed that 4 individuals were. 2 of them were students, 2 of them were teachers, 9 others were injured, wounded, taken to local hospitals. Authorities also say that the was 14 years old, a student at the school. This will be the first and last time I mention his name, Colt Gray, Gray. That individual will be charged as an adult. Let's bring back Juliette Kayyem along with CNN security correspondent Josh Campbell. Josh, a lot of information not provided. We don't know what kind of it was. We don't know how many rounds were fired. Tell us what the headlines are beyond the 2 teachers and 2 students.
Yeah, well, that was certainly important to learn what the makeup, the attributes of the victims were. But as you mentioned, there's still a lot that we don't know about the actual incident, certainly the motive. And quite frankly, I wasn't expecting at this juncture for authorities to actually come out and start explaining anything that they've gleaned about a motive. Sadly, as you and Juliette and myself, we've covered so many of these, they'll come out with statistics, so to speak, about what transpired. But particularly if you have a suspect who was taken into custody, there's still a prosecution, and so we often see law enforcement hold a lot of information close to the vest because all of this has to hold up in court. They don't want to jeopardize that. As we learned there, this juvenile, this 14-year-old, will be tried as an adult, which in the state of Georgia for offenses, serious offenses like a capital offense involving the potential death penalty, those will go to adult court. So we got that detail, but still a lot we don't know about the weapon itself, and you know that's key for me right now is how did a 14-year-old gain access to this firearm. We've seen in a number of instances, such as at Oxford High School, the parents there were prosecuted for their ability to help him get that firearm. We also saw in
Give him the electric shock penalty over and over and over. Dude, you're talking about a 14-year-old, dog. Like, do you hear yourself? Do you hear yourself? Do you think that's going to solve anything? Like, I get it. People are emotional about the situation, but like, you understand that like we have so many up sequences of action in full display when you got a 14-year-old that's like doing such a thing. This will now come up in a debate. I hope Kamala takes advantage of it. I mean, come on, dude. That is like such bloodless. That is like such bloodless calculation. Like, that's crazy. Oh, how will this impact the debate is crazy, dude. I know your heart is probably in the right place, and you mean like maybe this will move the needle towards like some kind of common sense legislation, but it's wild, dude. It's crazy. This is where we're at, bro. I'm in the middle of covering a school right now. Yeah, your hair looks great. Yeah, it looks great. It looks fire. Hold on, I'm gonna put it on here. I'll show you. I'll show chat. Jason the Ween is. It's not Austin. It's Jason Ween. It looks good, man. You look more twinkish than I've ever seen you before. You hung up. America has no problem 14-year-olds abroad, so I guess it makes sense. Yeah. Anyway, getting back to the situation at hand. The entire point of legislation is supposed to be to prevent these sorts of things from happening in the future, right? That's the argument made for the capital penalty, for the capital punishment, for the death penalty. The argument made for the death penalty is it's a deterrence. It'll scare people into it is so that people will be afraid to commit such an atrocity in the future. But ain't no mash gives a shit about being okay. Most of them themselves in the process.
Find dust and teacher is like flipping tables and stuff and barricading the door. So I was just scared out of my mind. I was like, what is happening? Because I was like, whoa. And then I pulled out my phone. I texted my mom first, and then like a couple of my friends, see if they're okay.
With me now is someone who unfortunately knows the pain of in this country all too well. Max Schachter, his son Alex Schachter was during the Parkland, Florida massacre in 2018 at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. He is the founder of Safe Schools for Alex. The mission of Safe Schools for Alex is to provide schools with the best safety practices and resources to keep students safe. Max, what goes through your mind when you hear there was once again in the United States yet another school?
I mean, first of all, my heart just breaks for the families of the students and the teachers. When
he cannot get the death penalty. Crimes committed as a minor have been ineligible for the death penalty since 2005. I mean, he's going to be tried as an adult, even though he's a minor in the state of Georgia. And yes, the death penalty would be at play, even if it's unconstitutional. I can't wait. I can't wait for this to be a new decision that the Supreme Court makes that overturns the previous decision, where they move in the direction of like allowing the death penalty for minors who are tried as adults, so that'll be another fun thing to look forward to in the docket.
Not going to be able to prevent all of these from happening, and when it comes on campus, nothing good is going to happen. So what we have to do is what we've done in Florida is we focused on the best prevention method we have. The best tool we have is threat management. All of these individuals that go on to become school mass
Do you think
murderers,
you should get it? No, I'm anti-capital punishment regardless. What the f do you mean? On principle, no one should get it. The death penalty is morally repugnant. It is not a thing. It's a non-starter for me. So do you think he should get it? That's so insane.
Is that, there were telltale signs. There were
It's a 14-year-old who four people. It's not just a 14-year-old who made it oopsie. What the f do you mean? It's still a 14-year-old. Why do we have age of consent laws? Why do we distinguish minors from adults? A 14-year-old is, under the eyes of the law, and in terms of like the way that you should interpret the situation, not fully cognizant of their behavior. Okay? That's it. This is not an oopsie at all. And I understand the calls for against the 14-year-old or vengeance. It's a perfectly understandable emotional reaction to such an atrocity. But ultimately, that is not how the law is supposed to work. The law is supposed to be bloodless and cold and calculated and reasonable. Okay? American culture surrounding crime and punishment is so out of whack in comparison to the rest of the world. We will never be able to have this conversation. Okay? Justice is not vengeance. The entire point and purpose of laws, rules, regulations, and criminal punishments for acts is supposed to ensure that it doesn't happen again. Okay? A deterrence, if you will. Unfortunately, in the United States of America, our laws are completely okay, and seemingly this has not stopped. If anything, it's gotten worse. So what do we do? It seems like in terms of there is one thing that is different from every other country, because when you look at other Western developed nations, the argument falls apart that it's mental health, because everywhere else they have the same number of mental health problems, the same percentage of mental health complications, and yet they don't have mass. Okay, when is justice not revenge? Wait, what? Justice is not revenge? What the fuck are you talking about? What you're supposed to look at in a situation like this is, how do we get here and how do we make sure that this never happens again? That is the point and purpose of the criminal justice system. Okay? That's it. That's what the actual true purpose of the criminal justice system is. That's what it's supposed to do. And if we have been moving in the direction of further and further punitive measures for any kind of crime, not just this one, but just any crime in general, and yet it is not solved the issues of, perhaps it's time to look at something else. The mass availability of weapons makes it incredibly likely that will occur. That's it. There are a million different studies conducted on this matter, but even if you don't want to look at studies, you can look at comparable nations. There's one other nation in the European continent, Switzerland, that has higher levels of ownership than all of the other Western nations in Europe. Okay? Switzerland also happens to have higher rates than all of the other nations in Europe. Having said that, however, Switzerland, despite having a heavily armed citizenry, still does not have anywhere near the rates that America experiences. Perhaps there is a reason for that. The reason is reasonable prevention measures, legislation, control. Okay? That's it. They're not wizards. They're not operating on a different plane of existence. They're human beings. Social safety nets, of course, factor into this. But you have to understand, like, I am calling for cooler minds to prevail here. Okay? You lived up, brother. I like, okay? You know this already. I do not have a problem with just like a firearm in general. Having said that, however, it is unconscionable that everyone and anyone could just carry it, take it from their parents, and use it. It have one purpose and one purpose only. It is to end life. Okay? That's it. The first thing that someone at a firing range will tell you is how to responsibly use because those understand it better than anyone else, because if mistakes are made, they'll die. Okay? It is not an accident that is significantly lower in states where there are more restrictions on access to weapons. California comes to mind, even Illinois, where Chicago is, that everybody talks about all the goddamn time, still has a lower rate than the national average. And Chicago, Illinois specifically, is obviously right next to a bunch of states where there's no restrictions, no legislation whatsoever, which is precisely the reason why the overwhelming majority, if not damn near entirety of the purchased and used in the state of Illinois, in Chicago, are actually purchased outside of the state. You just drive a couple miles, cross a state boundary, and you bring that into the state. There is no argument. There is no argument against reasonable common sense. Are you reading this from Twitter? No. I am a political commentator for the past 10 years. If you think this is my first foray into responsible safety arguments, I don't know what else to tell you. Twitter, he says. Yeah, I went to the Nazi website to learn about responsible prevention measures. Bring back public hangings for like this. That would be a real deterrent. People shouldn't have to send their kids to school with fear of their kids not coming home. Kids in American schools getting shot at more than cops at this point. Yeah, that's the real reason. Yeah, we should publicly hang a 14-year-old. That will solve mass schools specifically, which are more often than not conducted by people who want to kill themselves either in the hands of the police or directly by themselves in the mouth. seems like that's not going to solve the issue of, nor will it solve the issue of in schools, but maybe it'll make you feel better for a brief moment. What a psychotic take. I like that prevention, which is the only solution to this, okay? Prevention, which is the only solution to this, is a non-starter. Perhaps it has something to do with, obviously, lobbying and American culture being so incredibly and so pro. New York Times did a survey of 29 control methods. All 29 were supported by huge majorities of Americans, yet because of NRA and Republicans, 0 become law. It is also the overwhelming majority of NRA card carriers that themselves want universal background checks, for example. I think it's like 70% of card-carrying NRA members also believe in universal background checks. That's what's crazy about it. That last take was a real make suicide illegal kind of take. I know. A lot of the big brains working overtime here. Hasan, your take is not good either. A full ban is the only solution. You can't do all the restrictions, but a child getting from his qualified father will not stop anything. What the are you talking about? There is no perfect solution, ass. We're talking about the law here in a country where there's 330 million weapons in circulation. More than that, actually, now. What are you talking about? Okay? You can't just like wave a magical wand and be like, oh, all now have to be perished magically. It doesn't work that way. The goal is not to stop all. You can't do that. It's impossible. Okay? Where there are people and there are will occur. It's impossible. It's never going to happen in the United States of America. The solution is to try and make it less likely. Okay? Laws are written for the person on the planet, obviously. That's why we have seatbelt laws. Okay? But it doesn't help that you're demonizing. There has to be a middle ground. Man, shut your ass up demonizing my ass. What the f do you mean I'm demonizing? Shut your ass up. Shut the f up. It's not a real. Anyway, demonizing my asshole. What the f are you talking about? You think I have feelings? What the f do you mean demonizing? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? What do you want me to do? Put it in my asshole so you'll know, oh my God, this guy's like, he's not demonizing. Let me suck off my AR-15 on the corner here so you can fully understand. Like, I don't have an issue with, okay? I swear to God, Americans are so brain broken, dude.
You knew that something very bad was happening next door. Did he ever say anything?
No, he never really talked. He was pretty quiet. He wasn't there most times. Either he just didn't come to school or he just would skip class. But even when he would have talked, it was one-word answers or just short statements.
You told me off camera you weren't surprised that he would be the why is that?
Just because when you think of like and how they act or things that they do, it's usually the quiet kid or like that's a stereotype for it to be, and he was the one that fit that description in our class.
Did you ever see the student that go to the door, see them describe it to you guys?
No, I haven't talked with her after this. It was all pretty hectic, but I didn't see the.
Did he ever have a hobby of hunting? Did he ever talk about any of that?
No, he never really talked.
Can you tell me what it was like inside of the classroom when you hear those go off? How I heard that you helped to keep the other students calm, right?
Yeah, most of like when we heard it, most people just dropped to the floor and like kind of crawled in an area, like piled on top of each other, lost a shoe when they were, trying to get to a corner. The teacher turned off the lights, but we all just kind of piled together. And like I pushed desks in front of us. I was just telling people like, oh, push desks in front of you, block in front of you, get low, things like that.
And are there any metal detectors in the school?
No, not that I know of.
Did you guys drill for active? We know that some school districts do that.
They were silent drills, so we stayed in our seats. The teachers kept teaching through them. I think it was more for like the system of it instead of like preparing us.
How quickly from the moment that you heard it go off to the hard lockdown alert going on the screens, letting everyone else in the school
Bro, I'm not
know
going to lie. People are talking about the media re-traumatizing these kids, but like, this is so commonplace at this point. It's so goddamn commonplace at this point that like the kids are basically like, yeah, I'll do an interview. It was going to happen inevitably. There are people in this country that have literally experienced multiple mass. Okay. There are people in this community that have survived one mass and then survived another school. Literally, I remember I think it was in a college. I forget which college campus. There was a lockdown happening because there was a mass, and there were chatters in the chat like, "Yo, I